Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to our Friday morning trading session. Hang on here a moment as I share my screen with you. The market's just opened up. And we've got kind of a little bit of a sideways market to start the day. You can see this is the Eagle, not much in the way of the overnight session. And even though we put in something resembling a rally yesterday, for the most part, it was very whippy, very choppy trading. It's, if Jim is in the room, I'm sure he's going to remind me that it's triple witching today. That means we've got a bunch of expirations all happening on the same day. A bunch of contracts being rolled over. That sometimes leads to a very indecisive market. We're getting an early signal here on the Hawk as well as the Falcon. Oh, actually the Raptor as well. I see we're producing a first micro-macro cross near the top end of this trading range. Oh, it could be. Tony says, isn't it actually quad witching today? It very well could be. You know what? I may just throw a onesie on this macro pullback type trade. I know it's very early. I usually don't commit to the market this early. What time is it? 6:32. So the market's only been open for a few moments. We'll see if they settle on a direction here. I might try to run this one out since it's only a single contract. And this type of trade is really just the dip your toe in the water kind of trade. What had me interested is that it's more or less following the trend line here. Getting a little bit of heat. Market trying to fight it back a little. Here we go. Come on, get up there. Get up there a couple of ticks so I can get my stops in. No, I'm not liking it so far. Like I say, this is very, very early, very risky. If they fail at this point, well, they're almost certain to head lower. All right, last chance here now on this red bar buy. Here we go with another red bar buy. We're into the hard edge, or very close to it. Looking for that reaction. Come on, give me something here. All right, well, we've at least confirmed the support here at these lows, so I can roll my stops in a little bit. No, they're not going to head higher. All right, I'm going to get tagged here in a second. Come on, you. Nope. There they go. Very interesting bar that we have going on right now. You can tell the fight, the tug of war that we've got. There was a little itty bitty opening gap below the market here, not much to speak of really, which is why I didn't take it into consideration. They're fighting it a bit. I really don't hold out much hope for this trade. No, there you go. All right, so they don't seem to be all that interested in heading higher. Let's see what we get in the way of a sell setup. And after that, I'll just be sitting on my hands if that fails. So we're getting something resembling a rule of three here on the Eagle. We're starting to produce counter trend signals. Don't have all the structure to a rule of three type trade just yet because we're missing this final retest of the high. Right? We want to see that retest, then the failure, then the signal. Go out of manual mode back into all right, there's the first micro macro cross lower. Ay, 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 ay. What a setup. No decent place to cover the trade, right? If I enter here, I've got to pull my stop way back here somewhere, which is doable. And I would love to enter below the low, but you see that practically takes up my entire profit objective. The signal never triggered anyhow, and now we're into a macro pullback type scenario. Come on, get into yellow bars. Make this easy on me. So we're just following the order higher. I'm trying to give it lots of room because I honestly think this is going to be a failed trade. Also, if you're looking for a trade to follow me on, I don't think this is the best one. Shoot, they got me anyhow. Well, it's a good thing we nabbed our profit, but just a tough little trade. You see, no follow through. No follow through down here. Very little follow through off the macro. We got our profit objective, but not much more. Now we're working a possible 4-arrow consolidation. Yeah, it's going to be one of those days. Let's see, what do we got here? Okay, a decent trend change signal on the Falcon. It kind of occurred rather quickly, and the trend line went out of sync here for a couple of bars, which technically spoils the signal. I was talking to Andrew the other day, and we were actually talking about this second push entry, which I don't do as often as I used to, but it's very helpful when you're undecided about the market. You know, we don't really know as to the market direction right now, but we are producing a trend change signal, which we know is a high probability signal. So should we take it? Should we leave it? What should we do with it? Well, one of the things you can do is you can incorporate a second push entry on the signal. And all that means is once the signal prints, we let the signal engage, and then we look to see for the reaction. There's almost always going to be a reaction after the signal engages, especially in a tool like the Eagle. I do tend to use this a little bit more in something like the Eagle. But by letting the signal engage and letting the market react to it, we now know the limit of the market. We now know how far the sellers are prepared to let the buyers go, and vice versa, how far the buyers are prepared to go. So this now becomes our signal bar, and we're going to enter above there. And in this case, we didn't miss out on anything, but you can see almost every single bar, once it's triggered, there's a reaction. See how this bar traded all the way up here and then finally closed lower? This bar here tripped the signal and then reacted and moved lower. So if you're uncertain about what the market is going to do, a second push entry strategy is really quite useful. Occasionally, the market will not give you the reaction and it's going to move along without you. But even then, at least you know which way the market's going to be moving. Like right now, it's a little bit of a crapshoot. We are getting another first micro macro cross here. I may offer it up to take it below there. Oh, we did get a decent hard edge bounce here off of the Raptor. And I'm going to try to run that one out. So the Raptor produced a decent little hard edge bounce signal here. And for these hard edge bounce signals, we're essentially looking for these flag type patterns as well. We'd like to see a retracement, a clean retracement into the hard edge. Usually it will make two moves into the hard edge and then come out. We did eventually produce our trend change here with the Eagle. So there's our trend change signal. Here is our retest, right? So here's the high, prices come down, there's the retest, there's the failure, there's the signal. This bar right here, after the signal bar, actually becomes our signal bar because it's the one where the ATR goes into sync. And you'll notice that here too, once the signal was engaged, the next bar tried to move higher. So we would have somewhere through here seen the current limit of the buyers and sellers, or in this case the buyers, and we could have structured our trade to enter below the low of that bar, which is pretty much the same trade that we have going on with the hawk right now. But you had a chance to do it on the eagle also. Gary's asking, what kind of trade manager are you using on the Raptor? This is called the Trailblazer. It's a slightly different version of the trade manager in that it does not have the risk component. You preset your quantity of trades and your profit targets up here. And the nice thing about the Raptor, or with the Trailblazer, I should say, is that it's a one-click system. So you see we're generating a sell signal here. If it prints a sell signal, and here I'm going to enable a stop strategy. There we go. So we have our stop strategy, we have our profit target, we have our quantity, and the Trailblazer was designed to be a one-click system. I only happen to have it on the Raptor, but you can place it on any chart you like. You can place it on Hawk, Falcon, or Eagle, doesn't matter. Likewise, you can put the trade manager on the Raptor as well. The reason the Trailblazer was developed in the first place is some of our DTS owners were trying to trade some very fast-moving markets. And, you know, with the trade manager, you have the submit button, you place your order, click, 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 and then you hit submit. And in some of these really fast markets, the market would already be past the order, and they were complaining. They were saying, why can't you give me a one-click system? Well, that's what the Trailblazer is. It's a one-click system. But because it's a one-click system, it can't give you that risk manager component, because the risk, of course, is going to be relative to where you place your entry and where you place your stop loss. So you need, with the Trailblazer, you need to know approximately what your average position size should be relative to your stop losses, and then so you don't end up risking more than you can afford. And we're going to get a signal here in a second, I think, and I'll show you how this works. There it is. So you see, I just hit the sell market button, and I automatically get my profit objectives. I automatically get my stop loss. It's just a very efficient way to enter a trade. But as I mentioned, the downside is you do not have that risk component to your trade. All right, so a nice little progression now on the Raptor. We hit our profit objective on the first, and it looks like the NQ in a little bit of a tailspin today. I better get this trade at least to break even. And I may even go with something more aggressive like parabolics. No, I won't. We'll go with the ATR. Sure, the ATR works, so we'll accept that. There we go. So we're back now at some pretty important support. How can I tell? Well, the market just went screaming lower. Well, not screaming, but a good move lower, and they put the brakes on here around 43.78, 79. And I think we're not going to ride out this swing. Gary asks, is it inherent in the system if we own the trade manager? Well, yes and no. Here, we're going to do a demo here for a second. Yeah, we don't have any real signals building, so nobody follow what we're doing here. I'm just showing you. With the trade manager, you have the risk component, but you also have the option of going to manual mode, in which case it will default to the quantity up here. You can still hit your buy and sell market button. So let's say you wanted a quantity of 2 contracts. You have your stop set up below the swing low, and you're going to say, well, I'm going to buy it, and you hit your buy market button. You get your stop, you get your entry, you get your break-even trigger, but you don't get your profit objectives. With the Trailblazer, you also can preset your profit objectives, but that's not something that you can do with the trade manager. You can still punch into a trade, however, but when you use these buy and sell market buttons, they will default to this quantity up here, not to your risk percent. All right, so it does incorporate some of those elements, but like I said, not all of them. Yeah, if you're ever in a panic about missing a trade, don't forget you can just snap into it with the buy and sell buttons. All right, so now we're kind of retreating a little bit from this support area. I'm hoping that wasn't the move of the day. But it might well have been. We'll give them a couple of minutes here to sort themselves out. We are getting a macro pullback signal and a possible late filter entry signal here on the Falcon. One, two, three. This may also be working into a 4-arrow consolidation, which tends to be a high probability trade. Starting to see a little bit of sideways drift. There's our late filter entry signal. So the filter not in sync yet, but I know that if this bar closes on the low, it will bring the filter back into sync. I would feel a little better about entering actually below the low. Shoot, you're kidding me. Okay, so here's a situation where, again, we get the second push. There we go. So we know the current limit of the bar, or of the market. And now we're looking for that renewed momentum to bring us in. And I guess I better get a stop and play. We'll dial that back just a little bit. Good question here from Gary about the 30-year bond on the Raptor. Hold on a second. I'm going to pull one over here for you. Let me get that stop just up here. There we go. All right, 1 second while I build a 30-year bond chart. Uh, 30-year bonds, where are you? There you are. 'Okay, so here's the Raptor with the 30-year bond, and you can see the problem is these vertical lines. These are our daybreak lines, our session lines. Now, this is okay if you're going to trade the 30-year bond end of day, but if you're going to trade intraday, it's going to make it kind of tough. So first thing you need to do is you need to adjust your brick size. So let's dial it down to a 4-tick brick and see what that looks like. Okay, that's a little better. We usually like to see it span at least the width of your monitor, or reasonably close to it. Okay, so it looks like a 4-tick brick is probably pretty good. The next thing you want to do is you want to take a look at the signals themselves. And you want to make sure that the signals are still performing. You'll notice that our cloud is not quite as smooth as it was. So let's take a look at our cloud settings. So there's still the default settings. So now you just roll back through your chart and you look for signals like hard edge bounces, cloud crossovers. I might, let's adjust this a little bit. Let's go with an 8 and a 6. And on the Raptor itself, and I'm just experimenting here now, folks. This is the thing about the Raptor is you can experiment, and we're going to dial down the brick size here on the Hawk to a 2. Okay, that's starting to look a little bit more normal, relative to, when I say normal, I'm using air quotes. I mean, what would this chart look like if it were the NASDAQ or the Russell or crude oil or gold or soybeans instead of the 30-year bond? And this is starting to look a little bit more like what we're used to, isn't it? So what I've done is I've actually dialed down to our alternate settings, but I've left the cloud a little bit wider. So we have a 8-tick and a 6-tick cloud. I changed the Hawk to a 2-brick setting, so that's on your here on your Raptor itself. See Hawk bars, the Hawk portion of the Raptor. I've changed that to a 2-tick brick. And we have a 4-tick mean Renko. Now you can experiment with this further if you like. You can maybe go a 6 and a 4 on the cloud, or a 4 and a 6. See, that looks a little smoother still. And what you're looking for is how are the signals responding? Here's a cloud crossover. It's holding. It gave a decent signal. Okay, so it's looking like that might be a good setting. When we were using the DTS system for trading the 30-year bond, because of the $31 per tick value, we had to dial down the brick size even more. So we were working with a 2-tick Hawk, a 4-tick Falcon, and a 4-tick Eagle, which is pretty much the minimum setting for any market. But it does seem to be working okay here on the 30-year bond on the Raptor. So I've got a 4-tick on the brick size. I have a 4 and 6 tick on the cloud, and I have a 2-tick on the Hawk. And it's looking like that's working out pretty good. You know, nice little hard edge bounce here. The market's drifting, but hard edge bounce comes out. A deep hard edge bounce here. The market comes out, found a little bit of room. Here we are now working on a possible cloud crossover. So Gary, I would say those would be the settings that I would go with on the 30-year bond. Once again, that's a 4-tick mean Renko, a 4 and 6 tick cloud, and a 2-tick Hawk on your Raptor. I'm actually liking the way that's looking. I may hold on to that one. So the 30-year bond's heading a little bit lower. That's suggesting that we're going to see a little bit of a rally here in the stock market, in the NASDAQ, and that's what we're getting. We're moving back here now into the hard edge. Here is a late filter entry that did not work out. There was nothing wrong with the signal. This is why we only went in with a onesie, because the market momentum was down, but it was very slow, right? They put the brakes on here, and then they tried, but the buyers beat up on them and eventually gave us a trend change to the upside. So we did have a chance to reverse on that trade. But it does look like we're going to be in a little bit of a pullback phase here for the moment. First micro macro cross into the hard edge though. Joe says oil needs to make up its mind. Let's take a look here at the oil market. Here's oil on the Hawk. And yeah, see, more of the same in oil. They're just waffling down and up. Nice run up in the overnight though. Look at that. That was a very strong session. I haven't checked any of the news or anything yet. I wonder what happened in the overnight to spark crude oil to rally that way. Oh, Joe's following the Canadian dollar. Let me see if I can get the Canadian dollar on my data. Haven't looked much at the Canadian dollar, not from a day trading point of view anyway. So are you looking to buy or sell, Joe? Oh, come down. All right, so he's looking for a short. So here's the 6E. Joe's doing the US Canadian dollar pair. The session break lines here are almost acceptable for the brick size. I might go with the alternate settings. The day before was all right. The day before that, that was the 15th. That was Tuesday. Very, very quiet. Monday, very, very quiet. Yeah, it almost looks as though for the Canadian dollar, you may have to dial down to the alternate setting. Again, you don't have to. You can certainly, trade this sort of like an end of day type scenario. Here's a late filter entry signal. You'd have to hold through the overnight into the next day, but nice move lower there. Let's see what that is worth, just out of curiosity. So there's the late filter entry signal, and let's say you got stopped somewhere around there. Yeah, that's not a bad little trade. Not too terribly expensive either. Yeah, the currencies have been on a tear. The Canadian dollar, the Aussie dollar, the euro, the pound is a little bit weaker, but I was expecting them to sell off a long time ago, and they didn't. Just kept sneaking higher. All right, here we go with another green bar sell. It's currently against the ATR. I would be looking for it to come into sync with the ATR. So this is a hard edge bounce. If I take it on the hash mark, can I get to the profit before the lows? Not quite. Gee, all right. Well, it is a doable trade. It's not as appealing as if the ATR were still in sync. Here on the Raptor, we're getting once again this bear flag type formation where we're looking at a double pullback into the hard edge. We'll see if we come out of here with a sell signal. We did get a soft edge buy signal, and it made a nice rally to the hard edge, which is our initial profit objective. Oh, way to go, Joe. Joe says, my job's done. I'm back at break even. Break even is a win. Last thing you want to do is feel like you're chasing the market around. Because you're always going to be a step behind. Just trying to get a feel for which way the wind is blowing on this one. We're getting sell signals with no follow through. We're getting buy signals that are hesitant. It's not a fun day. See, we're starting to break the hard edge and produce signals. That's all right, I can wait. So we're producing one signal to buy. Technically, we have a trend change as well as a late filter entry signal here on the Falcon. If you were inclined to buy that up, something's wrong with my account settings. All right, let's see if we get a second push on this one. We did get the second push signal right here off of this one. Right, so here's our late filter entry, and you may be concerned about entering relative to these highs, that little swing high, because hey, we're in a downtrend, why not? So there's the signal, and we engage the bar, and you can see that the bar is kind of retreating. Or is it? What's with that bar? Okay. We'll use this bar here. This bar is retreating, so now we know the limit of this trade. We can set up our trade accordingly. Funny kind of day today. Well, thank goodness we caught some of that move on the way down, because we haven't had much in the way of opportunity since then. All right, so here we go now. Seeing a little bit of a reaction here on the Raptor. The Raptor is actually painting this quite nicely where we have a pretty solid trend line to follow. Oh, they're still just stuck. All right, I thought we were going to see a little bit of a breakout there, but not much. I was watching crude oil, and they just took a little bit of a move lower. Nothing really to take advantage of. Still kind of waffling within this bigger trading range. But sometimes you see that type of thing trickle over into the stock market. Where now we've broken the trend line support, but we're into yellow bars here on the Hawk. It's it's a tough call. We'll see whether this green bar sell comes back. You'll notice the width of these bars. There's a lot of trading going on around this whole 43.90 area. Yeah, Tony says, I haven't heard your dog for a long time. Is she banished from the office? Yeah, well, in a way, she died about a year ago. She was sick for a long time, the poor thing. She was a standard poodle, beautiful dog. What a great dog she was. We haven't gotten another dog. My wife keeps hinting she wants another one, but honestly, our lifestyle, the way it is right now, it's not fair to an animal. We're traveling more. We're out of the house a lot, so we're not getting a pet at this moment. All right, here we go with the green bar sell. Yeah, we're still against the ATR. We do need to see a retest of the lows of sorts. Yeah, thanks, Tony. Tony says, I'm sorry to hear that. It's, I know they're part of your family, but what can you do? The poor thing, she was sick from about 8 months on. She had cryptococcus. And I hope there's no vets in the audience because I don't have too many good things to say about veterinarians anymore. She was on some really hardcore medicine her whole life, and at the end of her life, I find out that she probably didn't need to be on that medicine. But yeah, she was unfortunate for her. She was born at a time where there was a cryptococcus bloom here on Vancouver Island. And for those of you who don't know what cryptococcus is, it's a fungus that's usually prevalent in Australia. And for some reason, we had a relatively mild winter. It cropped up here on Vancouver Island. It's since died off because we've had a few colder winters. But it's the type of fungus that's literally on everything, on every blade of grass, on every stone. And of course, dogs being dogs, they smell everything, they lick everything. And she ended up with this in her bloodstream. And because it's a fungus, it's really hard to kill. And so she was on some really hardcore meds, almost chemo type medication. And she had 9 good years. But yeah, she was a nice dog. Every time I feel like I need another dog, I go visit my friends who have a border collie, which is terribly OCD, and that pretty much cures me. Beautiful dog, but oh my goodness, that dog is crazy. All right, so are they going to make a run lower here? Oh, they are. All right, they're going to try it anyway. So we're getting, again, some conflicting signals. Um, this is really the kind of trade that you want to just throw a single on it. You don't want to go too crazy here. We're still against the ATR. I'm not convinced that they're not going to make a run here to the top. We're in full-on scalp mode for the better part of the hour. All right, they're trying, and now they're pushing away again. quite a four-arrow consolidation. It's four signals. You could count this one. Actually, 1, 2, 3. We do have only the three signals. The four-arrow consolidation, of course, the only signal I will take off of a yellow bar on the hawk, but I may hold out for the first micro-macro cross if in fact they do choose to rally from here. There we go. We're working on a red bar sell now, or pardon me, a red bar buy. Might see a little bit of a retest. You see, what I'm thinking is, all right, what if this current phase here is a retest of the lows? Then we're going to get another run up. 1, 2, 3. Well, we could consider this a four-arrow consolidation. Again, I'm going to hold out for the first micro-macro cross. I'm not going to get too crazy trying to second guess which way the market's going from here. And good thing Tony's distracting me here with another question so I don't do anything stupid. Tony says, how do you go about counting the consolidation? I see a lot more than four arrows. All right, great question. The four-arrow consolidation is a pretty solid pattern. Well, here, let me find a blank space and we'll do it there first. Okay, the four-arrow consolidation typically occurs during a pullback phase. And the best pullback phases always have this type of shape in an uptrend and this type of shape in a downtrend. These are known as bull flags. These are known as bear flags because it looks a little bit like a flag. What we're looking for during this consolidation period is we're looking for the market to signal 4 times. And after the third signal, we become much more alert because we're looking to capitalize on that fourth signal. And likewise here in the downtrending market, we're looking for the market to give us 4 signals, and we would capitalize on that fourth signal to sell. These are very reliable patterns. They're consolidation style patterns, as I mentioned. This is the best setup for each. The second best setup would be for the uptrending market to move sideways. And during this sideways period, or the downtrending market to move sideways. And during this sideways period, we would once again look for 4 signals to buy or 4 signals to sell. Oops, wrong tool. Or 4 signals to sell. There is a third pattern which is less reliable. It's in an uptrend that actually has a little bit of a consolidation that has an upward slope, or in a downtrend, a consolidation that has a little bit of a downward slope. Doggone it, why do I keep doing it on that side? Once again, we will typically see 4 arrows produce. Stop it. Or 4 arrows produce this way. It's still a 4-arrow consolidation, but as I said, it is less reliable than these 2 types formations. All right, so now let's go take a look at 4-arrow consolidations on the charts. So here we have a market which is obviously in a downtrend. When it starts pulling back like this, now I start thinking, oh, okay, macro pullback, maybe a 4-arrow consolidation. You can see we had 1, 2, 3. After this third signal, I would have loved to have seen the market retreat a little bit more and produce one more signal. The macro pullback was still a high probability signal, but if you were holding out for a 4-arrow consolidation, this is how it would be beginning to shape up. Here we have a move higher. Here we have a pullback phase, but this only printed a macro pullback signal. Here we have another move up. Here we have a pullback phase. This one prints 1, 2, 3 signals and went from there. You may have considered the pullback flag to actually look like this, in which case you may have included this as your 4th arrow. Now, this is another one of these formations where sometimes you don't always micro analyze it. If it has a pullback type structure to it and you're only producing 3 arrows, and we start to break the trend line, you may say, all right, well, maybe 3 arrows is enough. I'll enter on that third signal. In this case, I was holding out for the first micro-macro cross signal, which it came right here, and you can see we had good follow through from that. But this is what you're looking for whenever the market is, made a move, and now it's in consolidation. Here's 1, 2, 3. Unfortunately, this did not print a 4th signal. Normally it would. Now I know I say 4 arrows. This arrow actually, this order never engaged. So technically we only have 2 arrows here. But again, we have the right shape, right? So let's not be too picky about this. If we have a signal, you maybe want to consider it a 4 signal consolidation instead of a 4 arrow. More often than not, those 4 arrows will print because what you're looking at is a market that's attempting to recover the trend, but it can't. It makes 4 attempts to recover the trend higher. Here's attempt number 1. Here's attempt number 2. Here's attempt number 3. Okay, now we're getting really interested. Here's attempt number 4. And then it finally finds the momentum it needs. It's like the buyers, and this is true for the sellers too, it's like they'll give it a chance, they'll give it a second chance. The second chance is usually when they're going to try hardest. This is why the macro pullback signal is such a reliable signal, because very often that first push in the retracement, it's okay, we'll try it, but we're not really going to try. That second push, it's like, all right, if we don't get our act together now, we're going to lose control. And that, again, is that macro pullback is very often when that second push happens. This isn't the, let's see if I can find you a better macro pullback that shows this. This is similar. So here we have our first micro-macro cross technically. The pullback was already starting around here, but you can see here's push number 1, and the sellers are so, yeah, okay, we'll move the market lower, maybe not. And then the buyers start to kick it up a notch, and now the sellers say, oh, well, all right, if we're serious about this, we really have to give it a go. And now we have our macro pullback signal. The 4-arrow consolidation is similar in that after the second attempt, the buyers or sellers know if they don't recover it at the 4th attempt, well, it's game over. Right? They're going to lose control of the market. So the 4-arrow consolidation is also a very strong pattern in the sense that if it fails, you can pretty much anticipate that the market's going to move the other way. Here's a 4-arrow consolidation, a little bit more on a sideways flavor, right? Not quite that nice bull flank that we like to see, but still the same principle. So the market runs up. Here's attempt number 1. Here's attempt number 2. Here's attempt number 3. And now it's attempt number 4. It's like, okay, boys and girls, if we're going to do this, we got to do this now. And if they don't, well, then you can almost be guaranteed that prices are going to head much lower. It's that strong of a signal. So the NQ took a little bit of a hop up. Oh, I should point out before we leave this subject entirely, in a market like crude oil, because it tends to consolidate a little bit more quickly, we only look for 3 arrows. Same for a market like gold. It too tends to consolidate perhaps a little bit faster. But a very worthwhile pattern to keep a lookout for. And today is odd in the NQ in that we're only getting three signals on the consolidation. We had 3 signals here. We had 3 signals here. That's odd. That's the exception. Okay, so now we've made a little bit of a move up. Now the buyers are starting to lose traction, it seems. And we may in fact get another move lower, maybe. Raptor working on a cloud crossover here. The Hawk, a first micro macro cross. No, maybe I'm premature with that. All right, here we are back into the hard edge. All right, here's an interesting signal now on the Eagle. We're still against the ATR. I know that if this bar closes at 43.86 it's going to print a hash mark that's effectively going to become my signal bar. And what I'm seeing here is a little bit of a consolidation type pattern, that bear flag that we were looking at before, and looking for a possible failure at this point. A failure of the trend line, a failure of the uptrend or short-term uptrend, and perhaps a move back down to the low. Now, I'm probably going to end up being a lot more aggressive on my stop if I get filled on this. What else have we got? Not too much at the moment. The Raptor's struggling with that cloud crossover. Things starting to tighten up there as well. The Falcon already working on a possible trend change, and the Hawk, well, the Hawk's just into yellow bars again, so that's no help. Yeah, the Geiger counter, Joe says the Geiger counter is green. It's pulling over and holding, which is good for the buyers. However, if we don't see an uptick in the buying, that means the sellers are absorbing all that buying pressure. and that signal will actually validate. Crude oil tailing off a little bit also when the NQ made that little bit of a run up. Crude oil, here's crude oil on the hawk now. Made a decent move lower. Very difficult to trade this one. Working a first micro macro cross signal right here. That's actually your first decent signal of the day, and you would have hit your scalp target. But overall, pretty quiet day in crude oil. Well, pretty quiet day overall, really. Okay, so now the Geiger counter's starting to flip over a little bit. Oh, no, maybe not. Buyers haven't left the building just yet. Getting some conflicting signals here now. We had the sell opportunity here in the Eagle, and now we're getting a macro pullback signal on the Hawk. The Falcon is still back and forth. Yeah, it looks like the Geiger counter is going to come through, and we're going to maybe see an uptick here after all. Really tough bar. Look at the size of these bars relative to the others. Just all the trading that's been going around this 43.90 to 43.92 area. Just look at the width of the bars. As low here is around 43.86, 87, and about as high as 43.92. Well, I don't know if they're going to give us anything else here this morning. I was hoping for one more trade, but I don't think we're going to get it. All right, you guys, I think we're going to close up shop here a little bit early. The market's starting to head into a little bit of a sideways drift. You can see here on the Raptor, we're just starting to waffle, still making higher lows, so technically the market is still bullish. And like Gary said, it's Friday. All right, we're going to close up the room for the day. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend. I'll catch you guys again Monday morning. And girls, we'll see you then. Bye for now.